Okay, so this is a bit of a first. I had so much fun talking to Phid that I lost control of what time it was, and the video is so massive that it doesn't like rendering properly for me. So what I've done is I've actually split this interview into two, both of them being released on the same day, so you can watch them one after the other. The other option, of course, is you can download the podcast. There's actually a link for it in the video and in the description, so you can see or hear the whole interview uninterrupted. And there's actually some bits that I've taken out for the edit anyway to make it fit, so thoroughly worth sitting down and having a listen to the podcast if you get a chance. But in the meantime, I'd sit down and have a look at what you've got going on here. Phid is one of these people who is absolutely manically impressive with everything that he does as an award-winning broadcaster and podcaster, as somebody who works in gaming and social media. He's got a really interesting way of seeing the world and a really unique perspective as an expat Kiwi overseas at the moment in New South Wales, of all places, in Sydney. So he can see some parallels with what we're doing here and what's going on there. But at the same time, he can see the differences that's going on there as well. It's great to sit down and have a chat to him about these things. I really recommend, if you get a chance, watch both videos. Okay, have fun. Enjoy. But yeah, was it just a lockdown starts now?
Okay, so it was really weird, right? So we had, we saw the numbers going up and they started reporting more and more numbers. And so we live in an area which was considered, so Sydney is broken up into LGAs, right? Local government areas.
Mm-hmm.
Essentially councils right next to each other. And our LGA was considered an LGA of issue or whatever. I can't remember the exact term. LGA of concern it was.
Yep.
So our cases were going up faster than a lot of the other LGAs. And that's because our LGA has Bondi in it.
Yeah.
So anyone who doesn't know Bondi is a very well-to-do area. It's not like the rich, but it's like well-off, very self-entitled people living in the area, to put it blunt. And we had already had not restrictions put in place, but essentially warnings saying, hey guys, it's time to start social distancing, numbers are going up, blah, 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 blah. And we went into lockdown first. So essentially what happened is all these LGAs of concern, I believe there was 4 or 5 of them at the time, went into lockdown first, but it was pretty much, they weren't calling it a lockdown, they were calling it a stay-at-home order, which was, hey guys, stay at home, you can still go shopping, all the shops are still going to be open, but just make sure you wear your mask, stay away from people if you can, and if you don't have to go to work, do it from home.
Okay.
But that was the rules that were put in place, and I say rules very loosely.
Yes.
And essentially, literally the next weekend, literally the following weekend, Bondi was packed.
I remember seeing the photos, and I know the area around Bondi a little bit. It's actually quite densely populated, isn't it? Like the houses in there are quite close together.
Yeah, it's all pretty much housing apartments and things like that. So a lot of people live there, and essentially, whenever it's a beautiful day, everyone goes out on the beach. Don't blame them. If I could afford to live there, I would do the same thing.
Yeah.
But under the circumstances, Sydney was pissed. Like, anybody with half a brain in Sydney, let me put it that way, was pissed. They're like, what the fuck, you guys? You guys have literally been told, stay at home, our numbers are going up, and you're just going out and not giving a shit. So that's when we started to see cases really start to come up. I think it was 2 weeks later. I haven't kept track of this very well. It's been so long ago.
It does start to blur after a while.
Oh, totally, and it has really blurred for us. But essentially, a couple of weeks later, the numbers started creeping up towards like the 500 per day mark, right? And Sydney eventually, Gladys was under pressure to finally make a decision and go, right, we're going, or everybody in this the greater Sydney area would go into lockdown. All of the people out in the WAPs or beyond that would be fine. And if everyone had stuck to the rules, that would have been the case, right?
Yep.
Once again, it's people, and it's really messed up because if you had a look at all the posts and stuff on social media and things like that, and I know, look, don't take social media as gospel. I literally have worked on social media for the last 10 years, so I understand. But look, everything we were seeing was all in pretty well-to-do areas where these densely populated beaches and things like that were all where people were filling up. And but the blame started falling on people in Western Sydney. So essentially, the lower socioeconomic areas. Well, they call it lower socioeconomic. They're not. It's not a poor area at all. It's just not wealthy.
It's just not next to a beach.
Exactly right. So I lived, previous to where I live now, I lived out by Bankstown, which is one of the places where they will start to call, this is the problem. All these people are going, like, no, people were out there were wearing masks and shit. Like, people were sticking to the rules. Is there a population, or would there have been groups that weren't? Of course. It doesn't matter where you live in this world at the moment, there's those populations, right?
Oh, yeah.
But they started pinning the blame on them, and just became a hell of a mess. The thing is, though, the people up in those areas, these are your blue-collar workers. They're working 9 to 5, if not 12-hour shifts. And we started seeing police out there and choppers literally flying over the area with. I didn't realize choppers had speakers on them.
Wow.
Until recently in the last 3 months, where they'd fly over and literally if they saw like people playing basketball, masked up but playing basketball, right? They would say, go home, you're not supposed to be out.
That's the sort of thing that you expect to see in like an X-Men movie.
Right. So it was pretty freaky, but then finally, I think under pressure, you started seeing this happen out at Bondi and Northern Beaches and all the sort of the beach areas and things like that. It finally started to happen in those areas, but still, they're the ones that still to this day are flouting the rules. Are all these sort of well-to-do areas.
So, are the numbers still rising there?
So what I can give you literally the numbers at the moment. As of today, our case numbers have gone down to 667 cases today, and that's the lowest.
That's half of the outbreak that we've had here.
But in saying that, we're celebrating that. Like, that's today's numbers.
Yeah.
We're celebrating that because we were at thousands literally a week ago per day. We were at like 1,200 cases per day. But in saying that, we're starting to see these numbers come down because the vax numbers are going up. We're currently at 65% of all adults in New South Wales have been double dosed.
See, that's a fantastic number because New South Wales went for a vaccination heavy program, didn't they? That was sort of
that's we're going to get out of this. Up going for.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So we were pretty lax last year. So, and look, people were celebrating New South Wales as almost being the gold standard. Like literally, our Prime Minister was calling us the gold standard. But in saying that, we were pretty lax, man. Like, it's scary for me because I see what we were doing last year.
Yep.
But I will say that everywhere I went outside, I was masked. If I went on the train, I was masked. If I went into the office, because I was only have to go into the city once a week. I'd wear my mask literally whenever I wasn't around my colleagues, right? And I work in a team of 5, so we had a pretty closed bubble. But anytime we stepped outside of our office, masks on.
Yeah.
To be honest, we probably should have been masked the entire time.
Hindsight, though. Hindsight is one of those things.
100%. But looking at how we were literally up until 4 months ago, maybe 5 months ago, it scares me because I see the parallels between Australia and New Zealand right now.
Yeah.
And as a Kiwi, I spent almost all of last year going on about how proud I was of New Zealand.
Yes.
Keeping the vaccine at bay, doing a great job of border control. Like, the Labor government had done a brilliant job of border control. Did some cases get through? Yes. But they were dealt with super fast.
Yeah.
Right. But as they said, and they've been transparent about this, right? Is if they were never going to be able to keep all the cases out. There was always going to be some leak through. This virus is a bitch.
Yeah. Yeah,
right?
exactly.
And what scares me now is looking at New Zealanders' attitudes towards the vax and stuff. And I'm not even talking about anti-vaxxers. I'm talking about, because you've got people that are like, I know the right thing to do is get the vaccine. Mm-hmm. I'm going to get the vaccine. I'm going to wear a mask. I'm going to follow the rules because that's what all the science and evidence is telling us we should do, right? Mm-hmm. You've got that group. Awesome. Love you people. Then you've got your anti-vaxxers at the other end who are, fuck the government, fuck masks, I'm never going to do this, blah, 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 blah. But in the middle, you've got, I would almost argue, just as problematic as the anti-vaxxers are the people that are just, and this is such a Kiwi thing, right? It's like,
it'll never affect me, so I won't need to stress about it.
Exactly, right? It's either that or the other one that we've noticed with some of our friends, and it's so frustrating because these are smart people. They're like, oh, look, it's not that I'm against the vaccine, but I'm just trying to make my mind up because I've seen some cases that I've seen some things that show that maybe this happens, so I'm just going to wait it out.
But what are you waiting it out for?
What are you waiting it out for? Like, yeah, and this is like, I'll be blunt here. Like, my own son who lives in New Zealand, I haven't seen him for 2 years. But my own son in New Zealand, he's one of the people that are like, oh, I've seen, you know, it's going to be fine. Like, I don't know anyone who's got it, but, you know, I'll get it eventually.
Yeah.
And we're like, son, what's holding you back? Like, literally, there's a Bunnings around the corner from where he lives. And that Bunnings is a vaccination centre.
It's a walking distance and you can just walk in.
2-minute walk to go and get it done.
Yeah.
It's like, so it's not that. It's not hard to do. Okay, so this is interesting. So here there's different regulations for different people, right? So the older people were classified for AstraZeneca. And then as they got younger, sort of, it was Pfizer and all this sort of thing. But they had this rollout which were moving way too slow. So they started with the older people, and then it was over 40s, and which is weird because for me, I'm literally 1 year short of getting this. And then I think it was 30 to 40 and stuff like that. And finally, they dropped it down to essentially when we went to lockdown, they changed the rules and said, well, shit, we now need to hurry this up. We've got heaps of AstraZeneca. Mm-hmm. So if you're under the age of 40 and you want AstraZeneca, we will approve you for it, but your priority is Pfizer, but we just don't have any. You need to book it. Mm-hmm. So we decided, we did the homework. My wife's done an amazing amount of, she actually studied it, did a 6-week course learning about the vaccines and stuff. Like
wow.
From one of the scientists that actually worked on the Pfizer vaccine.
Okay.
He was the tutor of it and teaching about essentially how they managed to fast track it and how it works and blah, 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 and how all the vaccines work. So we did our research and we were like, well, shit, there's nothing wrong with AstraZeneca. It's great.
Yeah.
Like, it's not actually a B-grade vaccine. There's people the media had been portraying it. It's awesome. So we booked in for it. Turned up at the medical centre, and they go, "Oh, you're booked in for now." They go, "Oh, we've got a problem." And we're like, "Shit, we've driven all the way here. You know, hopefully, we're going to get our vaccine." They're like, "Problem is, we have to prioritise AstraZeneca to older people. We've actually run out of AstraZeneca."
Oh,
but we've got heaps of Pfizer. Would you like Pfizer? We're like, fine. We would have taken either.
Yeah.
But essentially what they'd done is they'd cracked open these Pfizers and they had to use them by the end of the day.
Oh, that makes sense. Is there a sense there then, because obviously New Zealand is all Pfizer. That's the only one that we've got here as an option. Is there that
but sort of... We've got Moderna as well now.
Oh, have you? So Moderna's the single... Is it Moderna's the single shot?
I think it was.
Or was that J&J?
No, J&J. J&J is the single shot, which is... only got like a 60%
yeah
efficacy rate or something.
Yeah, I get it. With those different options in place, are you finding people have a preference for one over the other? Or?
Yeah. So, and this is all down to the media, right? So the media has very much portrayed AstraZeneca as being like it's the Gucci of vaccines. Like people literally brag online, "Hey, I got the Pfizer."
Oh my god, that's so
like
weird.
people are flexing that they got Pfizer over AstraZeneca. But in saying that, that has changed in the last few weeks actually, where people are just like, "Yeah, I got my AstraZeneca. This is dope."
That's really cool though.
And I think the reason people are sort of avoiding Moderna at this stage is because people just don't know enough about it. It hasn't been spoken about a lot over here. Like it's all been Pfizer and AstraZeneca. But yeah, preference has always been for Pfizer.
Is there a distribution preference around the country? Like, is Sydney, for example, getting more Pfizer than, say, Melbourne?
Okay,
because of what's going on there.
So what they literally started, this is a real political fucking football, right? So when numbers started to climb here, the government actually pulled vaccines away from different states. So they pulled them from Melbourne and Queensland and stuff, and essentially sent them all to New South Wales. And then Sydney got priority over, or the Greater Sydney area got priority over the regional towns. So like Newcastle and the likes of that, we got priority over them because they were remote enough to not have a lot of cases. But that there's then caused a follow-on effect, right? Where now our cases are down to 600 and something per day, but Victoria's are climbing.
Yes, yeah, because Victoria overtook New South Wales, didn't they, the other day?
Yeah, they have now. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel so sorry for Victorians because they have probably had it the hardest out of the entire country because they've had rolling lockdowns.
Yeah.
They've essentially taken a very New Zealand stance to the lockdowns where essentially cases go up, we lock down. Right?
It's hard and fast.
Yeah, hard and fast. Probably not as hard and fast as New Zealand, but it's pretty fast, right? But Victorians literally, they see case numbers go up previous to this lockdown. They'd see case numbers go up, and literally, if you had a look on Twitter, you'd see your mates in Victoria are like, "Here we go." Do you reckon 3 p.m. it gets announced? And this is what concerns me right now, right? Is New Zealand currently looks exactly like New South Wales did 4 months ago.
Yeah.
Where different areas are starting to see cases go up. And literally the only way out of this is, and you just have to look at the numbers of New South Wales. Like, there's bound to be some graphs out there. There's actually a really great Twitter account run by 3 school kids.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I'll have to share it with you. Yeah. It's run by 3 school kids. Nobody knew it was kids until last week.
Oh, wow.
Everyone thought it was like scientists or something because the graphs were beautiful. And yeah, it ended up with 3 school kids.
That's impressive. That's really impressive.
They outed themselves last week as being 3 school kids, and the way they outed themselves was they posted a photo of them getting their vaxxers. They're like, "Yeah, we can finally get our vaxxers," and everyone's like, "What the fuck? You're 12?"
But that's perfect. It's awesome to see kids at that age getting engaged to try and help people and get that information.
The thing is, my son's 14, and he's been pushing his friends to get the vax, right?
Yeah.
He's like, I want to hang out with you guys. I want to go do stuff, blah, blah, blah. At the moment, he's allowed to go hang out with his friends.
Yep.
They dropped the limit for the school holidays. Basically, groups of 3 are allowed to stay within their own bubble. They're not allowed to go into a different bubble of friends.
Oh, God. These are your friends for the holidays, and you will like it.
Yeah. So select your fucking 2 friends you want to hang out with, because that's all you've got for 2 weeks. And they're only allowed to go to, within 5 Ks of each other's house, pretty much. Anyway, where was I going with that? Yeah, so he's been literally saying to his friends, like, it's coming up, we're going to be getting reduced restrictions shortly as soon as we hit 70%. Because we keep our... The one thing we've always done with our kids is we've been really open about politics and the way the world works and stuff like that. So he's pretty well educated in the whole situation. So he's been educating his friends, like, let's get vaccinated, all that. And then it's got to a point which is really interesting where he's trying to help his friends who have parents that are anti-vax.
Oh, okay.
Navigate how to get vaccinated, because there are loopholes for 14-year-olds.
That makes sense.
To be able to get the vax without their parents' permission.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, actually, right? and it kind of needs to be with something like this.
Yeah, because like there are certain demographics within Sydney. I'm being very careful with my wording here.
Of course.
But see, finally I've hit the political stage. There are definitely certain groups which they are just very anti... They don't trust the government. Mm-hmm. They anti being told to do anything. They question everything. Mm-hmm. Which, look, question everything. I'm definitely totally up to that. But do some actual research, not Google searches. Like,
I saw this video on Facebook research.
Yeah. My cousin said.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. So, and he's got a few friends that sort of fit inside of that group, and he's been helping them find out how to get around the legal thing of, do you have to legally have your parents' permission? Can they sneak off and go get the vaccine without their parents knowing?
That has to be a lot of stress for a kid, for a teenager.
He takes it in his stride. He finds it pretty cool, to be honest. He's like, I think this is feeding into that teenage rebellion that we all had.
That's true.
He's like, I'm going to rebel against all my friends' parents.
Hey, big goals. Good on him.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's been pretty cool to see that. But the youth are the ones who are wanting to take it up, right? So I would say the Gen Z is smarter than a lot of the millennials and a lot of the Gen Xers.
So that was part one of the video with Phid McAwesome. I want you to check out part two for a couple of reasons. One, it finishes off the conversation really well. But at the same time, we sit down and we discuss how actions of people like Brian Tamaki going out of their way to break the rules is so frustrating, not just for people like me who are stuck in Auckland who are following the rules, but for everyone overseas as well who can sort of see how these actions have led to issues that they've been dealing with. So thoroughly recommend you sit down and you watch episode 2. I'm going to make sure there's a link in the description to all of Phid's social media profiles so you can check it out. Or if you want to, and it's easy, you can download the podcast for this episode as well. It's all one big episode for Phid. You don't have to worry about downloading it in 2 parts.